Sometimes the old Americans get a bit of a bad reputation about not very healthy food, but you know, they actually have some great dishes. And this is a kind of a modernized version now. I'm not really gone by the book on this one, but it's kind of a jambalaya paella kind of dish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some nice gumbass prawns, nice big fellas, bit of onion, tomatoes, selection of herbs as per normal. Use what you can get. Thyme is an important one in this one, and a bit of bay leaf, but you can get those easily off dried. If you can get them fresh, all the better. I'm going to eat the rice I use. I'm using a Spanish paella rice. Not essential, but a good alternative is a basmati. Again, nice and seasoned this time of the year. I'm going to use corn on the cob. And what I'll go do with these guys is I'm just going to very simply just peel them off, chop them into big chunks, leave them on the cob in pieces. Going to use a pinch of star anise in this powder. Not essential, but I just find when you're using prawn dishes and a lot of seafoody kind of dishes, it just gives a lot to it. It gives it a lot of complexity. I'm going to just use water in this. I think there's going to be enough flavour coming off the prawns to give flavour. You could use a stock cube if you really wanted to. I don't think it's necessary because I find these gumbass, they have quite a lot of flavour in them within themselves anyway. And just a very, very simple kind of a rice one pot dish. One thing I should probably show you though is when you're using these guys, do use them on the head and the whole prawn as opposed to just ready peeled and so on. And the reason is because, as I said, you get a lot of flavour in this from the heads and from the shell. Crustaceans contain a lot of flavour in their shells. But one thing to just watch with these is there's a vein running down the side. Now there's fancy ways of pulling these veins out, but I'm not going to get into that because it just can get a little bit messy. So what I'm just going to do is with my knife, I'm just going to cut a very neat incision down the back and just nice and take your time with it. Lay it flat on the board and then put it in for that, and you'll see the vein. You'll see the little the intestine moving down. It's the only thing that needs cleaning in these, and just but it makes them much more pleasant to eat. And if you just take the thing, if you can see that, it all comes out in one piece, and that's the prawn cleaned. It just makes them a lot easier because sometimes if you're eating these, and that can be a bit gunky, if you like, for want of a better thing. So it's just a nice thing to do with these prawns, to just remove the veins on them. It makes them much more pleasurable to eat. Another thing as well is you have the added bonus, because now the shell is being partially cracked, if you like, they peel really easy. But I would say cook them in the shell completely. That's it, and without further ado, I'll just get onto the dish. And a little bit of time there, yeah, nice simple little dish this. So to cook this little jambalaya type dish, first of all, put a teaspoonful of coconut oil into my pan. Then into the pan I'm going to add my onions, my peppers, small pinch of salt. I'm just going to let those cook away just for a couple of minutes, just to kind of start taking on a little bit of flavour. Now, having just cooked that away just for about 5 minutes there, nice high heat, I'm just going to add in my raw corn. You could also use the pre-cooked corn in a little package and just chop it into chunks, or even a tin of corn, but obviously if you add that at a much later stage. Just going to cover that up there, just let that cook on for about another 2 or 3 minutes. And if you find your pan is a little bit on the dry side, just add a couple of tablespoons of water, cover it up, and that will speed along the cookery nicely. Again, if your pan goes dry, don't add oil, add water. Next up, I'm going to add in my spices. So I'm going to add my garlic, my bay leaf, my thyme, and my chili. The reason I'm only adding them in at this stage is I didn't want to risk any kind of burning on those, because again, garlic and things like that can go a little bit bitter if it's overcooked in any way. I'm just going to pop the lid on that again. Just give it about another 2 minutes just to cook away. Just keep an eye on it as it's cooking. After about 1 or 2 minutes, just going to cover that, open that up again. As you can see, all the vegetables are wilting down now, and the corn is just starting to take on a bit of heat. I'm now going to add in my star anise and my turmeric.
That's ground cinnamon, sorry. Oh no, excuse me, not cinnamon. Ground aniseed. Just to give a little bit of interest and flavour into that. And at this point also, I'm going to add my roughly chopped tomatoes. There's a little bit of moisture in there to those herbs and spices now. You can see the corn now, the fresh corn starts to go on a beautiful yellow as it starts to cook. And the next thing that we do is, now it's very important that you have an idea of the measurement by volume of your rice. So I'm going to add my rice in, first of all, and by volume I'm going to use 1 3/4 times water. You could use stock, but again, I don't think it's necessary. I think there's enough flavour in this already. So first of all, just stir up your rice, make sure it's covered with all of those nice herbs and spices. Just to start cooking through. And then whatever amount of water you used, or rice you used, 1 3/4 times water. So there we are. Just about that much. If you're not 100%, add a little less, and then if you think your rice is dry throughout cookery, you can always add a little bit more. It's not the end of the world. At this stage, I'm just going to add a little bit of black pepper in here as well. And maybe just a pinch more salt. And now, very important, reduce down your heat. And we're going to start allowing that rice to soak in all of the moisture. So nice low heat and kind of a nice moderate heat. And just let it go in a very, very gentle simmer. Keeping an eye on it, especially stirring it from the base, and allow the rice now to start soaking in all those flavours. And very important, nice tight fitting lid. But don't be afraid to take the lid off and have a check in it every now and again. Now as this dish is just cooking away nicely, you can see the rice is just starting to thicken up lovely. And you know, it's getting really rich and tasty looking. But you can see my pan is maybe getting a little bit on the dry side. And you know, if it's better to be wet than dry. So if you think it's a little bit dry as it's cooking and you taste the rice and it's a little bit hard still, just add a splash more water. If it ends up a bit wet, as long as your rice is nicely cooked, that's your main concern. And now we'll just let this cook away again now. I just adding a splash more water there, just to make sure that there's enough liquid for that rice to soak up all those flavours. And that's back on cooking there. That's been simmering away for about 7 minutes now at this stage. So after a gentle simmering, this has been cooking for about 10-11 minutes. And as you can see, the rice is starting to tenderize up now. And do taste a little piece of the rice. You see it might get a little bit sticky on the base. That's okay at this stage. The main thing, if you think it's a bit dry, don't be afraid to add a little bit more water. There'll always be a bit of evaporation. And as well as that, all the rice is going to act a little bit different. So at this stage, towards the end, when your rice is almost cooked, but not fully cooked and certainly not mushy, we're going to add our prawns in. So just kind of gently, just kind of push them in generously in around the dish, in around the rice. You could have checked your seasoning is there and added a little bit more salt and things like that at that stage. But you know, people can add that on the table, so I'm not going to get too sticky about things like that. This is just home cooking, enjoyable, simple, you know, and it should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be stressful. So I've just organized all of those there. Again, if you think your pan is a bit dry, I'm just going to add a splash more water in there, because I'd rather have too much water than too little. And now I'm just going to give a drizzle, a couple of tablespoons of olive oil at the end here over the whole thing. And that's going to give it kind of a richness to the dish. And now as that's just cooking away there, now we're just going to put the lid on and allow that to cook through until those prawns become lovely and red and their flavours will start imparting into it. Nice low heat, take your time with it, and it'll get there. I'll just have a little check at that as it's cooking. As you can see, prawns are going lovely and pink. And just to be checking it's not burning or anything. Now, in true paella, they like to get that little bit of crisp on the base of it, which is actually a kind of a quality point. But you don't want burn. So just allow that to cook away there itself, checking it through, and nice low simmer. And don't forget, all the flavour from those prawns now are starting to impart into this dish. Just going to give a little pinch of salt there and allow it to cook through. You'll be able to tell yourself it'll take about another 4. From the point you add the prawns, it'll probably take about another 8 or 9 minutes at a nice low temperature. But don't worry, just the main thing is low heat and make sure it doesn't burn on you. And at this stage, the prawns are just about cooked. As you can see, they're all coming together just nicely. There's nice, the pan isn't sticking, it's not too wet, it's not too dry, just a lovely little kind of a Southern American kind of feel to it. And then just to finish it, at this stage, I'm going to add a little bit more black pepper. I just think it needs it. Pinch of salt. And then my garden herbs going in at the last minute, just to give that little bit of freshness to the whole dish. So these are my oregano and a bit of margarine, and just after roughly chopping these up, you could use parsley. It doesn't matter. Again, for this kind of a dish, more Mediterranean soft herbs, less of the sages and rosemary, which would be a bit dominant. So there, I'm just going to put the lid on that and let those herbs just infuse back in there a little bit. You can put a trickle more olive oil on there as well, because olive oil, from an anti-inflammatory point of view, is a good benefit in your diet. And I've allowed that just one last cook. There we have it. Our little prawn. Now this could work with any other kind of fish as well. As you can see, you have this beautiful rice, you have your corn, you have your fish, and you can really see to get the taste of those prawns now are infusing, as I had said they would, into the rice at this point. And I'd strongly recommend serving a dish like this in the pan it's cooked, and all this needs then is just a few lemon wedges on it. And that is pretty much it. Serve it in the table and let people help themselves. Just maybe just a pinch of salt I think it needed at the end there, but that's it. Enjoy it.